This is a very unique team.
Yeah.
They don't win people want them to win conventionally, but if they play conventionally, they're probably not going to win nearly as much.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365. Week 2 in the NFL in the books for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they moved to 2-0 on the year. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday 20-17 in an ugly, hard-fought matchup, but they win nonetheless. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Monday morning, brother?
Yeah, man. Ugly, ugly, ugly. They say you can't put a lipstick on a pig. Well, sure you can. You know, they won the football game. It's got to make people feel somewhat better. Yeah, if you lose that game, you're angry and upset and not holding the door for people at Wawa, but they won. You know, they win football games. They win football games. I just tweeted out. That's your Al Davis inspired quote of stat of the day. The only one you need to concern yourself with. By winning that football game, Nick Sirianni is now past George Allen, the second best winning percentage by any coach in the Super Bowl era, behind only John Madden, who coached under Al Davis, which is where the Just Win Baby stuff started. Think about that.
Yeah, that's pretty
Number
impressive.
Number two in the Super Bowl era, 16 consecutive games they've won when Jalen Hurts starts and finishes, 18 of 19 overall. But it looked like shit. I'm not going to debate. It looked like shit. Offensively, not defensively. Which I think there's some interesting things. You know, Vic with the blitz, next gen stats had the numbers, which we'll talk about, but and Kansas City just well, you expect that out of Kansas City. They were blitzing all over the place, but you don't expect it out of the Eagles, and they did it themselves, which is a lot more than they typically do. And Vic will never admit this, but because he doesn't want to throw the other team. That's directly related to the lack of weapons Kansas City had. He felt comfortable blitzing Patrick Mahomes. And the number was 11 times, 28.9% of the dropbacks. After, of course, famously not blitzing him at all in Super Bowl 59. And that was directly related to not being concerned with the wide receivers.
Right.
Simple.
Exactly. Didn't think they could beat him, and they doubled down on it. John, a lot of what you just said is things that we're going to talk about and break down. You know, we always joke, Philadelphia fans, John, have PTSD for a lot of different reasons. All right. And a lot of it is warranted and justified. And I think there is a little bit of that also here with the winning. You know, you brought up the stat at the open of the show. They just keep winning. They just keep winning. And, you know, I think the thing that is now in the way of that is whether it's like that or not, that 2023 season where you go 10-1 and everybody keeps saying, just win, just win, just win. But all you had to do was pick up that top layer and you could have seen the cracks in the foundation. I think that's what's kind of giving people some pause on the 2-0 start. But you're right about the statistics. I mean, those are obviously pretty unbelievable when you put Nick Sirianni in that conversation, you know, in the same room as John Madden and company. But
which I don't think anyone does, by the way. I don't think, you know, it's an interesting. There's so many interesting dichotomies to this team. Like you have the quarterback issue who doesn't throw for a lot of yards in the back and forth with Chris Jones, which I'll talk about because I think that's interesting. And then you have the coach. Nobody believes in the coach now. If you say the quarterback has a great supporting cast, they jump down your throat. If you say the coach has a good, well, that's the only reason he wins. It's very, it's very weird. It's very. This is a very unique team.
Yeah,
they don't win. People want them to win conventionally, but if they play conventionally, they're probably not going to win nearly as much. So it's an interesting science experiment that
it is.
exposed the logic of many, to put it mildly.
Yep, no doubt it is. We're going to get into the offense and the defense today. We're going to have Jeff Kerr on the show as well. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. The Birds are 2-0, everybody. That's the good news. We do got 2 big super chats to start the show. Vulnerable Vitality with a $50 banger says Makuba. Yeah, that was big play by Makuba, and he had some other good plays in that game
Yeah.
as well.
His best play, which was that stop of Hollywood.
Short, right?
Yeah. Short first down because, you know, we all questioned his physicality, and you saw it on that play. Now, granted, everything's about leverage. Brown was, going sideways, and he was coming up full bore. Now, the interception, biggest play in the game, no question about it. Kansas City's probably going in to take the lead, but I mean that's a drop ball. That's like more Johnny on the spot. You got to make the play. That part of it's nice, but I thought the play where he stopped Hollywood Brown was the with play individually for Drew Makuba. But a lot of positives with him. And you can see what the Eagles like when it comes to obviously athleticism and coverage. And what they told me early on, he's very comfortable in space. It's rare when you have young players who are comfortable in space. You're out there by yourself with big time receivers, and everybody tends to grab and hold, and like he's very comfortable with it, which is something that stands out.
Yep, no doubt about it. Good stuff, Vulnerable. Thank you, brother. Another one from Vulnerable Vitality. Thank you, man. Two big super chats from you this morning. We appreciate that. And this one is good, Vitality, because you hit on everything. All right. So he says, I'm already losing my mind this morning. Everyone needs to chill out on the Brian Johnson 2.0 bullshit. It's ridiculous. Have people just started watching this team? Also, second game against one of the best D coordinators. John, let's start with the first part of that. All right. Kevin Patullo is obviously a name that everybody's talking about right now in Eagle Land. The offense does look a little spotty, but what do you make of it, John? With where we are in this team right now, they are 2-0. Offense looks how the offense normally looks in Philadelphia, but everybody does have expectations of a more high-powered passing attack, and I don't know if those are faulty expectations considering how much money the Eagles spend on offense. Now I know we are what we are. But we do still have the players that we have, and some people want to see them used more, whether right or wrong about it. Where are you on the offense, and what do you think of what they were able to do yesterday and just kind of the overall look at where that offense is right now with Kevin Patullo at the helm?
Well, to Vulnerable's point, have you watched this team before? They have these stretches. Now, unfortunately, they've had this stretch at the beginning of the season. If you go back to last season, for instance, you have the Green Bay game to start where they're throwing the football all over the field. One of Jalen Hurts' most volume passing games of last season in the opener in Brazil, but they also turned it over a shitload and probably should have turned it over more than they did turn it over. And that's one of the reasons they scaled it back so early in the season, which, by the way, I think is unfair, but I've said that pretty consistently to Jalen. But it worked. And now they've become hyper focused on ball security. It's working for them. Until it stops working, they're going to keep using it. So you're going to have these games. You don't want it to be that bad, obviously, or week one bad from a volume standpoint. You'd like to be better, but I pointed it out last season. They had a bunch of these games, a bunch. So, I mean, Tampa 158 now, and people say, well, they didn't have AJ Devontae. That's true. Giants 114. Rams 179. Baltimore 118. Back to back. Baltimore 118 and Carolina 108, which is even worse than this stretch. They also won both of those games. They also got lucky with the Leggett drop, just like these games with the drops. Very similar. People forget in the playoffs before Washington and Kansas City, there was Green Bay and the Rams. 131, 128. Look, there's a whole shitload of these games last year that they get forgotten about because they won the Super Bowl. This is what this offense is. This is what this offense has been. Now, part of this is they really never had these stretches. I'm going to open up a can of worms here. They never had these stretches with Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift to this level. They have these stretches with Saquon because Saquon's so good and they feel they can rely on Saquon Barkley. And that part of it got better. Not great, not the explosive last season Saquon Barkley, but 22 for 88. You saw a couple of big runs, the touchdown run. Good enough. But I mean, you're going to have these games. And to the Patullo point, look, people hate criticizing the players. They really hate criticizing the quarterback, Eagles fans. It ain't just the coordinator. It's a bunch of different things. And the quarterback's a part of it as well. So, but they keep winning games. So I don't, what, and that's why I bring up the Chris Jones, back and forth with Jalen Hurts. And for those who didn't see it, he said, you didn't even throw for 100 yards. He actually did, but as a team, they didn't. And Jalen told him, we won the game. Basically, shut up. Basically, paraphrasing.
Yeah, hit him with the "shut your ass up," John.
Yeah, exactly. So, that back and forth highlights to me the larger obsession fans have around numbers in the NFL, which somehow morphs into meaningless during a loss. Like I said,
is it fans though? I mean, that wasn't a fan that said that, John. That was Chris
Jones. I was getting to that. It seeps into the mindset seeps into whether it's Madden ratings. I talk about it. It seeps into the players, and the players feel this way as well. The vast majority of them about. Hey, I got to get my numbers. I got to get these numbers. Why do you think this AJ shit comes up every time? Like, there's no sustainable evidence. I wrote about this before the game. There's no evidence the Eagles have ever tried to trade AJ Brown, except for the wishes of New England, who keep making it up on Sports Talk Radio. There's no freaking evidence of it. But why? Because they presume he's like every other receiver in the history of football that wants numbers. And he does want numbers. That part of it's true. But he's willing to sacrifice those numbers as long as you keep winning. It's just, to me, we're a strange society. All of us, we're a strange society because it matters right up until it doesn't matter. It only matters during a win. Like, you can have 404 touchdowns,
right?
Like Russell Wilson yesterday. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wonder. See, I agree completely with you, and I think that's good context. But the other thing I would ask you is, they do care about numbers, and it's not all. Well, it's selfish in a sense, but this is their time to write their narrative on their career as an NFL player. You know what I mean? Like, this is what goes in the record books for them individually as players. AJ Brown probably thinks he's worthy of 1,500-yard years every year. He got two of them.
Yeah, he is worthy of it. But I
agree.
That's the point.
And he's good enough for it.
There is this, the business of football relies on numbers. The awards of football relies on numbers.
The accolades in a large sense, the individual accolades.
That's what I'm saying. You got to put up numbers. Like Jalen Hurts can go 17-0 and maybe win the MVP with 2,000 passing yards, especially if he has big rushing numbers. But you got to go like 17-0. I mean, you can't go 15-2. You can't go 14, which are phenomenal records. Like, you have to do something insanely special to be recognized in that environment. Um, Otherwise, yeah. So that's the pull back and forth that everybody has. They're meaningful, but they're not meaningful, which is again, we live in a strange society.
Well, I think there's a real element, John, to yes, it's over embellished to a certain extent when winning is what matters. But offense is the number one paid offense in football, in all of football. Is it unfair to want more from that offense? I don't think it is.
Hey, I always quote Moneyball. I haven't for a while. I'm going to quote Moneyball. Don't look at it as paying players. Look at it as paying for wins. You're trying to pay for wins. Like who's won more than the Philadelphia Eagles? If you
That's
look at it from that standpoint, um, you know, and you don't want to dehumanize the players because everybody knows um, you can't win without the players. I'll say it. I say it all the time. It's talent over coaching, talent over scheme, talent over culture. I always take talent first, always, because you need the players to win. But you're trying to formulate them into a formula, not to get numbers, but to get wins. And that is what Billy Beane started, the
yeah,
analytics craze in baseball, which has gone too far. But he had a little pocket where, like, he won with a bunch of nobodies. Had great pitching, nobody brings up, but he won with guys he wasn't supposed to win after losing all these star players, and um, that was his mentality. Like, we're not replacing Giambi, we're not replacing Damon. We're replacing their production. We're trying to get wins. So if you look at it from the standpoint of buying wins, nobody's done it better than the Philadelphia Eagles.
well, you're right about that, but it could also. I mean, there also is a real conversation about it could complicate Howie Roseman's job, who has to construct the roster, and you look at where you're making your hay, and we're one of the lowest paid defenses.
Yeah.
A lot of that's circumstantial because of the
I'm
rookie
not
talent.
I'm not worried about Howie, man. Howie's ahead of the game. Howie, people give Howie his flowers for the wrong reasons. I think I give Howie credit for the right reasons. One of his things that just I don't think a lot of people picked up on, but it was like screaming from the mountain to me is like when he was talking during the draft, I can find backups. I can find backups anywhere, anytime. Go find me guys with ceilings, upside.
Right.
That's what he was telling his staff. He goes out and gets Zadarius Smith. How many moves he made in August? Like Zadarius Smith is bang. He's 33 year. Want
Right.
him.
He looked good,
You want
man.
you want the young guy. You want somebody here for more than 1 year, but he's going to help him this year. So he proves it all the time. And he'll go out and get somebody else if he has to.
Yeah.
He can find those guys. But you're swinging for the fences in the off season. Like, can I get is Jalen Hunt going to turn into a superstar? You know, you swing for it's okay to swing for that fence in the off season. But when it's not coming to fruition, all right, let's give Z a call.
Right.
And when you win, teams also it's easier because players want to be here because they want to go chase a ring. So I mean, he kind of created this. I call it the mercenary market in 2022 when he got Linval and Dominican, who were sitting out the season until they found a spot and they got to the Super Bowl. Couldn't finish it, obviously, but it worked out. Unless you're insane and play by Ricky Bobby rules, it was great decision making. So yeah, he's ahead of the game when it comes to I can find those guys. Let's focus on upside and get as many really good players as we can. And he's done a good job with that.
Yep, no doubt about it. Johnny Mac, let's keep rolling here. Defense yesterday, Eagles versus Chiefs. They win the football game, as you pointed out. That's the most important thing. And they have certainly made a habit of winning. I mean, it just feels like doesn't matter what it looks like. They figure out how to have more points than the other team at the end. And Jalen Hurts touched on that in his post-game press conference. Good stuff from Jalen Hurts. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball, though, Johnny Mac. I think pretty strong. Look, I know you said the defense is going to look good yesterday because they're not playing very good receivers, but I'm of the assumption or of the belief that this defense is way ahead of where I expected them to be through 2 weeks so far. You had a lot of new pieces coming in. They were the number one defense in football last year. Our offseason discussions were dominated by the changes that happened on the defensive side of the ball. They're not there yet, but they certainly look like they have a big upside and a lot of good players. You mentioned Z Smith. The addition of him showed up in a big way yesterday. He looked like almost like a man amongst boys at times on the edge. Jahad Campbell, Makuba, both look pretty good. What's your thought on the defense right now? 2-0, John, only 2 weeks into the year, but I think that defense looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, I'm just be careful with this game. Don't overstate this game. That's what I said from the start. I mean, this is probably the worst group of receivers they will face all season. All season. Now, barring catastrophic injuries elsewhere. It'll start this week with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. Just be wary. That's all I'm saying. This is a game of context. I talk about it all the time. I'm not, Karnak. I can't see into the future, but I was pretty confident that the defense was going to play pretty well in this game, or be perceived to play pretty well in this game, because of just the circumstance of where Kansas City is and what they were rolling out onto the field. And that's the way it shaped out, with the lone exception being unable to contain Patrick Mahomes. And I think a lot of that was because Patrick Mahomes knew he had to do more of that because of how up against it he was from a playmaking standpoint. So, yeah, it was good, but I think there's a reason it was so good. But the standpoint of and Makuba talked about it. I think I saw him talking to John Clark. It gives, especially with young players, it gives them confidence. So that to me is really something to hold your hat on and hang your hat on. Like, if that kid starts playing with confidence is a big thing in the NFL. And if you're getting beat and you start hanging your head and, so you go into a game where you look like gangbusters. Everybody's talking about Drew Makuba, and all of a sudden here comes Devontae Adams and Puka, and now he's more confident in himself.
Right.
So I think that's the stuff that, a lot of people just treat the players as they're a video game, and they're not human beings. Like,
right.
This stuff matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the best things, John, that you talk about here with the way that's man. I agree completely. Let's go to 2 super chats, then we'll get to our main man, Jeff Kirk, coming up here on Birds 365. Cheapskate Coins. What's up, Cheapskate? He says, do you guys know why Jahan Dotson, other than one punt return, didn't get a single snap last night? Is that right? That can't be right.
No, I can get, he had like 12. Yeah, no, that's not true. Fake news. Jahan played 22 snaps on offense.
Didn't get the ball much, but yeah.
Just because you don't notice him doesn't mean he's out there. They did play a lot of 12. They played more 12 personnel that I thought they would. Like Kylan Granson played a lot.
Yeah.
Without Dallas Goedert.
How many snaps did Granson have?
34.
Wow,
So 57%. There were 60 offensive snaps. They played 12 a lot. Obviously, Grant Calcaterra played 53 snaps. So that's typical. That's like a Goddard number. So that makes sense. You have to play. And then Granson, I thought they would go more 11, but they're trying to run the ball. And remember, I brought this on our postgame show. Like, that Johnny Wilson injury, I know nobody cares and nobody thinks about it. It's bigger than you think, because they don't think their third receiver can block
right
very well.
I'm surprised they didn't try and like all the moves they made at receiver. I thought they would have maybe tried
Well,
to
there aren't
bring
a
in.
lot of guys
Yeah,
like
there aren't a
Johnny
lot of.
Wilson.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
not a lot of
and
blocking.
also you lose Ben Van Sumeren.
Yeah,
And you know, yeah, and they're trying to have John Mechie in their block a little bit and Darius Cooper. They ain't Johnny Wilson.
no, they're not. One
Now,
more
if you're
super chat
talking,
here.
if you want him to catch the ball, I'd rather have Mechie by a million miles. And that's all. Like that's all people think about with receivers. Well, can he catch the ball? Can he? There's a lot of other shit they got to do, especially in this offense.
Yeah.
And they don't have the Johnny Wilson role anymore.
Well, John, to your credit, when Johnny Wilson got hurt, and we did a breaking news segment, and you hit me with the Johnny Wilson's getting the breaking news treatment, and we joked about that. But you did say that on the breaking news that you said that. Look, I'm not going to say the offense isn't going to work without Johnny Wilson, but he is a big part of the running game for a team that runs as much as they do. So it is something to keep an eye on for sure. How they manage that. ZZZ checks in. What's up, brother? Appreciate you being here. Unless the offense gets it together, we 100% lose the next 2 games. Unless Saquon pulls off some sort of heroics. Can't see this sustaining. That's a Negadelphian right there.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's sustainable either, but what makes you think it would continue? I mean, again, you have all these games last year, starting with Atlanta, which is under 200 yards, and then next week Jalen Hurts throws for 311.
Right.
Tampa, and then next week against Cleveland, he's up at 264. Giants, and then he's up at 236 against Cincinnati, 230 against Jacksonville. Then you have the Rams. You know, that 3-game stretch was the worst. The Rams 179, Baltimore 118, Carolina 108, and here comes the Pittsburgh game. Even the playoffs, like which I said, which everybody forgets, was ugly against Green Bay. It was a slog against the Rams. And then bang, here comes Washington. And here comes Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and they score more points than anybody in the history of football in the postseason. So why do you think this is going to continue for 17 games would be my answer. Look, again, I'm not trying to put the lipstick on the pig. It looked ugly as shit. But you know what's good about ugly wins? Wins.
Yep.
You know, would you rather look ugly? Like you watched that bullshit on Sunday nights?
Oh God. I was on the post-game show, John. I was doing the after show. I'm happy I did the after show through that game. That thing was a snooze fest.
Oh my God. Like, but they won the football game.
Trenton, I mean, he hits the nail on the head. Giants fans would kill to be 2-0. We're spoiled. You're right about that, but you know, it's fair
there's definitely a lot of spoiledness with the modern fan base of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, this winning is historic. I don't use that word lightly. This is historic, the way they win football games. I was texting my buddy Ed Kratz last night. We'll bring Jeff Kerr on. I was like, this team may never lose again. They just don't lose.
No, they don't. One more super chat here. Let's go to Jeff Kerr. Dirty Air says, so if the D shows out against the Rams, can we admit they're good then? I think that's a much better test for sure.
Yeah, it's much more important. That's my point.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what you do against Taquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown. Now here comes Devontae Adams and Puka. If you can't see the context of that, Dirty Air, I can't help you. Like, if you want to get excited and think everything doesn't move and everything's the same and everything's static and say, well, they did this against this team, so they can do this against a team with a shitload of weapons. Does that mean they can't? No, but it'll be a hell of a lot tougher against the LA Rams than it was last night, even at home.